Okay, hi everyone. I'm just going to give you a brief overview of the work we've been doing on the terminology service side, and just quickly just to introduce what it is and talk about how we've been basically viewing it from a requirements point of view, and very briefly, and just demo an instance we've got of Athlon running, and just to give everyone an idea of how it works and how we work interface with it. Okay, so just very quickly, what is a terminology service? I think Carl gave a very good definition as well. It's basically a database of all the terminologies you're using in the system. I think there is central access so that all clients on the system are, so to speak, on the same page about what terminologies are being used. And we're basically looking at this from three use case perspectives. The most important is, of course, the back-end integration. So the TS would have to integrate into the RHEA architecture and be available for back-end querying and code validations of terms and so forth. The other is administrative, so people have to maintain the terminology because they have set them up and so forth. And then the third is the use case of the public web interface. So this use case has come up of having a public website available that anyone can access and just get the list of terminologies in use in Rwanda. And export those terminologies to, say, an Excel or CSV format and so forth. Okay, just in a bit more detail, the backend basically then consists of a server and a set of APIs and possibly some web services as well. So just its job is then basically to integrate really to interoperability there. And the users on that side are mainly the developers and system administrators and so forth. On the administrative side, there would have to, of course, be tools available for people to go in and maintain this technology, import new sets and so forth. And then I think the public side is pretty straightforward. That we have to be the website publicly accessible, allowing for searching and exporting and so forth. We're treating exporting as quite a big feature on that side. So we've got some ideas about that, which I'll show in a minute. Okay, so the main suite we've been looking at is called Athlon BTS by Athlon Inc. in the States. We've also been in contact with Athlon members, and I know Paul and Sean had a meeting with them as well, and Wayne and myself also been meeting with them. It's an open source set of tools. It consists, on the back-end side, it's got a server, which we found it's quite powerful and capable, no problems with that side. To address the administrative use case, there's the TS editor, which is quite a powerful tool available for maintaining terminology. It's also got a really rich plugin architecture, so you can just write little Java plugins that you drop into the editor to not functionality. I'm sure that's something Apple will be making a lot of use of. Then on the public side, there's the BTS browser, which is basically a very basic tree browser. Just from the server, it grabs all the terminologies and displays them as a tree to the user. But basically, it has only export capabilities, and so that's the sort of one component that we weren't too happy about. But we'll talk about that in a second. Okay, so basically, they currently have version 3.5. The big news from that front-end is that version 4.0, which is quite a big release from that will be available later this year. The only problem is that release will only be available according to them late Q2, so that's around June, July-ish. And it's not exactly an exact date, so it's not much to go on, but it does have some features that will be quite useful to us. So our thinking would be to work with 3.5 in the meantime, and as 4.0 becomes available, we'll integrate those features. One also seems to be willing to work with us on those regards to, give those releases to us, and as those features become available, give us the patches for us, so we can start working on that and so forth. Okay, so I think I'll just step into demoing software. We've basically got it set up here, so anytime during the week, if you want to see it as well, feel free to just come ask me and I'll do a quick demo. Okay. Like I said, it consists of the three components based on the use case. So obviously the server is a much to show because it's been running in it. So the first component I'll show is just the ETS browser. But the ICD-10 terminology is loaded in on it, so I log in on it and it told me before ICD-10 there. And I think basically what you see is what you get. So and then in addition, it's just got a search feature as well. Yeah, they had some problems with that, so that should be a result, so that should actually go well. Just tweak it a little bit, so it's not exactly that. And then the last one is search. So the next component is the editor. So So this is a desktop application. It's available. It's in Java, so it's available for most platforms, and it can connect remotely to the server for somebody to maintain some terminologies on it. So, like the browser, just go find a list of terminologies here, and then you can add rules, editors, and so forth. In this case, I can't believe it because Netcom released this ICD-10 as a read-only term set, so that people can't go in and change ICD-10, for example. We make our own set of terms. We'll make that really necessary. Okay, so select the term and give me some details on it. Namespace, synonyms. Properties are basically just metadata on the term or metadata and additional data and so forth. Each namespace has specific types of data attached to it. Then also map them to the one feature needed from this would be to map terms to other terms. And so this is the tool that we use to do it. It's just something that improves association. So drag my concept that gets big and you are the channel of this concept or do other types of mappings. It's all dynamic types, so we can find the types of them. So say if we want to do RHEA code, we add the type of that and just map it across. So, like I said, we weren't too happy with the browser. So, there are basically two ways we can address the shortcomings of that. And one is to, since open source, we can just grab the browser and change it as we need it. And the other thing is just to make our own website, which should be quite feasible to do. Because the server backend is very powerful, integrated to it, it's very, very easy, and it provides all the functionality we need. So for us to put a browser against that is merely just a stem talking to that. So what we've done in the last 2 weeks, we basically designed the prototype website, and just sort of changing the functionality of this based on the use cases that we see it. So this is what it looks like. This is actually talking to the back end, as I'll show you now. So as you saw earlier, ICD-10, so we can also restrict that to whichever namespace we want. The namespace is basically the terminology stack. So ICD-10 could be a namespace, the standard could be a namespace, and so forth. And like I said, I wasn't too happy with the searching on these browsers, so I just added a few flags to this so that we get better results. So this thing, interaction with area. Yeah, this is the term. parent concepts, functional concepts, and we just added an export there. So in this case, we can export the single term. We also got additional thinking, which isn't in this report, just to maybe make sort of some sort of setup where you could select the terms you want to export. So pick like a subject, so easy for this one. Select a few terms from X different namespaces and export them in this case of just export, so a single term. So we've got our files page. Still work in progress, of course, but this is my part. This is absolutely. And then the big thing there would be export. Yeah, I'm trying to do this one, but it takes about, I'm actually talking to the back end. It takes a while. So if we re-implement this and look to just optimize it, this takes a while to generate. I think it's 910,000 concepts. So that's not too bad. There are ways to optimize that. Okay, just export it instantly. Just some actions. Well, I think all the ways to time already. An additional note that ET schedulers are allows for subsetting of namespaces. So, I mean, if we're going to do like the Rwanda activity, we can either just import the Rwanda terms, or we can do full namespace and then somebody can actually select the subset. Probably. Like that, and so this is just a quick export. Namespace.
What about the material concept? Concept is this a place for that as well? Would you consider it while using subtitles?
I guess it would definitely need to actually on that. Okay.
Yeah, Chris, just to talk a little bit to that, those are some of the questions we're hoping to flesh out in the meeting itself. What this presentation was really to touch base on is some of the direction we're looking at, the functionality that is existing in Appleon right now, the ability to have multiple namespaces, our own, we can define our own sets of terms we want in there. And as Richard pointed out, we don't need all 9,000, 90,000 ICD-10 codes. We're 900, we only need the one specific to Rwanda. So within the course of the next week, we need to make sure that we've got the structure correct and ETS is going to work the way we're expecting to. And also within the breakout sessions, we have a look at this new interface that we're suggesting or prototyping at the moment. So it's been a rapid application that we put together to try and cater to some of the use cases of much easier browsing. And also to say that it's built on, for those techie points of it's built on the Twitter Bootstrap CSS framework, which means it comes up on your mobile phone really well. So it dynamically resizes itself. But we want to talk a little bit more in depth about that over the course of the next few days. For those, the consumers of the terminology service, we're expecting a lot of good questions, a lot of criticisms on what we got on the screen in front of us, your thoughts on what would be useful, and Richard, particularly from your side, where is the falling short now that we've actually got a local instance we can play with. seeing that is it meeting your real needs and expectations? And then do we look at putting the internal concept lab onto this as a mechanism to download within Outline, or do we tie that in? Do we use this little web app that Hannes has created as a aggregating interface into the internal concept lab, which may exist in also the OCC server or the MCL server itself?
So is the intention really for this to be human readable, or is it going to be a machine readable resource as well?
Yeah. So the idea is on the back end side to talk the machine improving those two, and then actively test it for maintainers to use it. So you don't have to be a technical person to maintain.
I wanted to just make an extra point on what Richard had said earlier. We are actually interested in about 100 priority diseases and diagnoses. However, in the Rwanda implementation of OpenMRS, of course, any diagnosis that can be made at the health facility level could still be coded with ICD-10, presumably. What we would do is just aggregate the 100 or so diagnoses of interest within the HMIS and export those. Everything else would go to another basket. But I think we would probably need to do a little bit more work on figuring out what the complete Rwanda ICD-10 set is, particularly at the facility level.
Thanks. In addition to what Bill just mentioned, which is the 100 or so codes which are meant for reporting, we also, actually the main trigger for selecting those 100 was for the fact that we made a decision to move to DRG type of costing, which we haven't done yet, but the costing is still going on. But we wanted to start building health services or building according to diagnosis instead of according to ARCS, which is the current kind of system. So we had to select which diseases we actually treat in our healthcare system so that we can attach a cost clause and tariff binding. So we may probably end up with those 100 or so for that purpose, for billing purposes, maybe there are people like others. But for there might be a need to have the rest of the diagnosis somewhere in the background. So if there's any new one that is appearing more often and it was not mentioned, was not stated in the month 100 times. So thanks.
I think F1 can case so we can set up any import like a whole name special, set up a subset of that, just maybe through a web interface expose a subset, but then add entries to the subset as
There's a question now.
Just a quick comment based on what you're saying, Gary. One of the points that we're kind of discussing in Jembi, we're looking at this web interface is what does it do? Where is it meant for? The high-level use cases we're given is to browse the terminologies and to download them. The question that I'd like us to think about as a group is to what end? Who's going to be using it and what do we expose? Because what Chris touched on is really that it's a double-sided coin, as all coins are. One area focusing at the back-end services, which makes all technologies available to accommodate the additional diagnosis and OpenMRS that are coming in and the reporting. And in the front-end human readable side of the exact same subset, and we expect those to be interacted differently. So as we start moving forward, do we want to download just particular subsets of the ICD-10 code sets or the LOINC code sets, or do you want to have a big button that says download all terms used in Rwanda for the humans to read? Where is the need to bigger time? I think that's something we should be talking about in the later session as work, but just for the rest of us to start thinking about it and let that percolate in your mind. And particularly, I think it's going to be very important to get the input from the point of care system applications. What do you want to see? How is this going to be functional and useful for you in the long run itself? Because it's straight for us to browse these now. What are you going to do with them?
There's a very clear distinction between what we need to do at runtime and what we need to do to get ourselves to runtime. So a lot of the functionality that we're talking about right now is what we need to have access to for now while we're setting up. But at runtime, there'll be very few people that need to browse an ICD-10 database. So you'll be looking forward to what Chris was mentioning. How are you making use of these terminology services to support decision support? That's frankly one of the key roles that a terminology server can play, is decision support that's on your automated interoperability layer and things like that.
I'm particularly interested in the version management aspect of this because terminologies don't hold still. And especially they don't hold still when you create subsets that are then used for particular purposes, and over time you want to modify those subsets because the information becomes available or the terminology that they're drawn from has changed for all sorts of different reasons. So keeping various point of service applications in sync using the same subsets for the same purposes would be a very valuable use, but it requires some centralized management as part of that approach. So it's not just terminology services, it's not just a technical solution. It does require some people coordination at the very minimum.
I think your comments and questions are helpful and can inform some of what we've discussed in that there are clearly going to be pre-implementation roles, users' responsibilities, and you need post-implementation roles and responsibilities. And you just need to be very mindful of what that looks like as something like this gets deployed. In our experience, we found that there's a lot of mapping up front, a lot of browsing of that database, and then afterwards, we tend to focus more on problem areas, evolving new vocabularies, but the volume of mapping, the volume of reviewing the vocabulary changes from pre-implementation to post-implementation. And the roles and responsibilities change, go to much more problem solving, adaptive back, much more discovery mode than the implementation.
I'd just like to add, you mentioned the word versioning. That one is always in version 4 coming out. That's the big feature in version 4 of this version. That's the core new thing. I mean, there's lots of little new niceties and stuff, but that's
But before I dive a little too much into the next question, do we have another whole session for terminology service where we're going to go into more detail?
yeah.
Okay, so then I'm going to hold off.
So actually, I just wanted to make a clarification, and Randy and Richard, feel free to jump in if you want. Rwanda also wants to use the terminology server for typically not the typical use case. And that is they have the need to keep local code sets that are relevant to them, that they need to make it accessible to others so they use the right one. For example, the administrative units that they divide up into as many villages of the same name, so they can uniquely identify each one with a number. It's not accessible to everybody. They want to keep it in a single place. And that's one of the key use cases for being able to download this way, is that they can direct people who are building their own system or just needing to use that data to an interface such as this that says go ahead and get a code set. This really should pop up once a week or so.
I feel like all the subset. So this is the second layer menu. The first layer menu is, other administrative data sets. This is totally
Right. And not to distract from data. Did I say that correctly?
Just one question that we've been thinking a little bit around the user interface here, and since we've got most of the people in the room, clarity is when we're looking at downloading code sets, how configurable do we want that to be? Do we want to be able to go shopping cart style where I want this ICD-10 code and only this one code on an individual level, or would prepackaged solutions such as this be sufficient for the downloads?
I've seen, particularly in my own use of this, some gray area in deciding what would be in, for example, the facility registry as opposed to in here. For example, the geographic administrative units are obviously captured within that interface. But we have quite a few other cases where we do have local codes that we're using and needing to. I think typically one of the things that we've been looking at is, for example, we have different services that are standard as a standard package of services at each level of the health system. And yet, every couple of years, those packages get revised as new capacity is built. And so we need some way of maintaining that list. And in our initial attempts, we were trying to use ISO standard codes for those services, but they didn't really map well with our local terminologies, so to speak. So those are the kinds of things that I think some of the applications, like OpenMRS, like the HMIS, like others, it would be nice to have something that they could actually refresh those code lists. Sort of as we're doing with the health facility registry, with that XML sort of a query capability, and you could just pull those in to your database.
Thanks, Andy. I think that talks a lot to the back end, so this is the functionality we'll be talking a bit more about in the session itself. My question is more towards the user side of it, and I think we should discuss more in session. Basically, do we want to define the sets that we're able to download, or do we want each individual user to be able to choose singular terms and add them to a shopping cart in essence to download that? That does change some of the technical aspects of it. But I don't see that being a big need, but that's what I'm using it here for us to talk a bit more about it and get a good feel on it. So, Richard, if this is where we're going to go, if we can get terminologies together, we can have something running.
Yeah, I think that's like Paul. I need to. I have some comments. I think I'll reserve them to that session when we talk about this. I'll also intend to invite someone from the clinical science department to be here for the consumers of this technology training. So I hope I'll be able to get somebody here. Bye.
Great. Anything else you want to put forward?
When is the deep dive session on this?
Yeah, tomorrow morning, first thing. So we look forward to everyone's participation in that itself. So if there aren't any questions, I think we're within the window to break from lunch. For those who just arrived, there is a Jembi Health Systems Rwanda office launch happening